Estate planning has a broad application. There's both planning in the ahead of time, and there's actual the results of planning or lack of planning. Always exciting to talk to an attorney that I'm actually involved in business with on a regular basis. Of late, when the name popping up on my email list and to-do list regularly is Cedric Collins, both a probate and a estate planning attorney here in Southern California. Cedric, thanks for coming back to our program today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Bill. Good morning to you and your listeners and viewers. I'm happy to be here.
And so I know that even though we often, I probably most often work in probate because that's probably where I overlap your business more. The reality is, based on everything you're doing, your really focus is on legacy, and even the byline on your website is the people we serve shall plan and preserve. Talk a little bit about your kind of vision of where your practice, where you like to take it. Obviously, people can follow your advice or not, or execute the plan or not. But where would you like to help push people or direct people to best take advantage of your services?
Well, we have a customized approach to family legacy planning, Bill, as opposed to what we're seeing, unfortunately, more of in this technology age that we're in, a more of a document focused approach with technology, where we're the more hands-on, get to know you, your values, what's most important to you, so we can customize the experience for you. Now, today, it's just ever so important to just make sure that all of your resources are properly accounted for. You get to put a customized plan and your plan in place, not something that's a template or the state's plan for you, not by not having a plan at all. So we're really big on focused, customized family. There's no one size fits all legacy planning for a particular family.
And so your practice includes both preparing plans as well as administering them when they come into play. So talk a bit how you feel when people walk in the door, virtual or actual, walk in the door with you as far as starting the process. How do you try to make it be different than, say, the do-it-yourself, where they could do online? Obviously, they can do everything you can do, as if online. So what do you try to do to make it feel different and get them to understand right away that this is a personal process?
Well, it starts off from the very first phone call. We have a community, excuse me, we have a client services liaison person that they may be in contact, who's a member of our team, or they may sometimes come in direct contact with me. They can get on my calendar, and from the very jump, we want to find out every potential client's why, because there is a why. There's a reason why. It's not just, hey, we need to get this done. That's kind of the surface level answer, one of the level answers I get when I'm in that initial interview, that discovery call.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my folks may say, hey, I've been putting this off for years and I'm just getting old, but those are all surface levels, right? We want to dig a little bit deeper to find out your why. And whether it's to protect and preserve what you worked hard for. Maybe there's a home in the family that's been in the family for decades or generations, and you want to make sure that ends up in the hands of the right people. Maybe you want to provide for a spouse who you may leave behind. So whatever your why is, we're going to find out what that is, so we can kind of customize that experience for you and your unique family dynamic.
Yeah, I think that comes across that you take a very personal involvement. I think you and I had a chance to get together for breakfast a few weeks ago, and it was interesting how you took the business of law from being very impersonal when you started and weren't satisfied to taking this route because you got very personally involved with your clients. And I think the deeper you can go, the more effective you can be in helping them make the right choices for themselves.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Having that kind of that personal touch. I come from the higher education space, Bill. For a number of years, I helped, it was in the education space. So I'm really big on educating and empowering people to really understand family legacy planning. And that it's not just about documents. And I talk about that a lot in my book, Prudent Planning for Family Legacy, The Truth Behind Wills, Trust, and Estates. And it's really essential to kind of take that planning approach as opposed to that document approach, because like I say, it's easy to get online and just kind of put a prompt in the computer and maybe it spits something out. But we sometimes, when we take that approach, we don't know what we're missing. We don't know what our blind spots are. And what we want to do is
Oops, I think we lost you there for a second. Hmm. 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 The dreaded internet pause. Cedric, let's see here. We're back on. I'm sorry, we're talking about the importance of not just being documents, but it being about personal relationships and understanding people's particular needs.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure quite where we dropped off, but one of the things that we do, Bill, to kind of help to make this a more personal approach is we have what's called a trust design meeting. And in that trust design meeting, we kind of take a deep dive, if you will, into the nuances of legacy planning. For instance, some folks don't know who is the best person in their life to serve as a trustee of the trust.
Hmm.
And by default, people say, hey, well, maybe it's my child, right? I have a child who's in their 20s or 30s, but they may not be the best position, nor may they be ready to
Hmm.
take on that role of a trustee. So what we want to do is we want to give you what the alternatives are, what some of
Hmm.
the options are. And many times there's professionals that folks have never heard of that we can introduce them to make sure that their estate or the trust is administered properly. So that's what we mean by a customized experience, letting you know what your options are to give you the best possible outcome for you and your family.
One of the, I'm sure, is like every business, we all want to do as much as wide as we can, but at the same time, focus on some niches or at least demonstrate some expertise. And I know one of the areas that you have a lot of experience in that you bring to your legal practice is dealing in entertainment law. How does entertainment law and your experience there help you provide for families that maybe are from the entertainment industry where they accumulated their wealth there or assets, or they have assets that are based on that, maybe IP, things like that? How does that experience help you, the families that you service?
I love this question, Bill, because I did not become a lawyer to do estate planning or probate.
Hmm. Yeah, we
You
lost you.
back?
I'm sorry. You did not get into this to do estate planning or probate. You got into this to do what?
I got in this to do entertainment law. I was a music major. I went to the University of Colorado. I was in their music and entertainment industry studies program. At one
Hmm.
point in time, I thought I was going to be a music producer. And I graduated at the time that there was a lot of flux in the entertainment business, and I didn't want to get into the industry. This was circa maybe 2007, 2008, during the time of that recession. And so I made a decision kind of at the 11th hour, if you will. I was really passionate about the entertainment, the arts, and the business side of it. I'd studied under a couple of entertainment attorneys in college. And I said, hey, you know what? What about this law thing? And so I was able to work closely with a couple of law professors there that actually, one of them actually wrote my letter of recommendation to law school, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Nice. And so, some of the issues that come up, what are some of the planning practices or tools or techniques you need to do that are unique, or what assets you look at uniquely with estate planning when it comes to entertainment law versus other formats?
Well, one of the things that we deal with in entertainment law is intellectual property, right? How do we protect and preserve? There's copyright laws, there's trademark, there's, you know, these rights that authors have and these original works of authorship. And so what we want to do is we want to help maximize, because think about these estates that have been in litigation, right, over the years for infringement or some type of sampling. Well, those estates continue to collect money long after an artist or entertainer passes away. And a lot of those rights can be passed down via will or via a trust. We're kind of pro trust over here at Legacy One Law Firm because we want to keep everything out of the court system if possible. So we can bring that kind of that unique dynamic, my understanding of the arts and entertainment, seeing how that was something that I wanted to do. And now I can kind of have the best of both worlds. So where someone maybe has the rights to a film or rights in their songs, right, through the copyright, which is like lifetime plus 70. So how does that lifetime plus 70 work, right? That's going to be 70 years after you pass away. Well, those rights can be vested into a trust and passed down to your heirs that way, where you're having a trustee manage those royalty streams. Think about some of the artists that passed away that may have not had plans in effect, not to name names here, but there's some pretty big names over the years. And a lot of times their families, their heirs have to go through the court system. We don't want any of our clients, whether they're entertainment or otherwise, to have to go through the court system in order to have their the royalty streams and things of that nature passed down to their loved ones.
I think that one of the challenges is it's become somewhat normalized in real estate to title assets when you buy them or transfer them in a trust. Right? It was a new concept, and I think still there's some hiccups there. And I get involved in plenty of cases where not everything is in the trust. But and we advise anybody in California, at least, my business advice, anybody who owns property in California worth $500,000 or more should title it in a trust, so at least you can pass it as efficiently and effectively as possible. But I guess it's probably not as common for musicians to both one plan, because oftentimes musicians or entertainers have great success at the very young part of their career, right? They're youngest when they make the movie or the recordings most commonly. That's not always true, but most commonly. Whereas most people in business, they accumulate over a long period of time. And so I imagine you must be dealing with people both who aren't inclined to plan, and at the same time, there's an asset that I'm sure our clients might say to you, how do I put the rights to my music in a trust? Like, aren't I the artist? Isn't my name going to appear on the rights? So talk about those discussions. You must have, obviously, you come from a music background. You must have some unique insight into how to effectively get young customers who I'm sure they're young, they think they're invincible, they're making a lot of money, and or these kind of obscure opportunities of putting these rights into a trust. Talk about those conversations a little bit.
Well, one of my youngest clients right now is an up and coming artist, and only 19 years old. Now,
There you go.
my record my youngest client to do a trust prior to this particular musician was 26. But this was a Netflix person that moved out here and then purchased some real estate here, very, very young. But that record was broken by a 19-year-old kind of LA-based artist here. And I really respected the fact that he had a team around him, very supportive parents. He had a team that really pushed him to get his plan in place very young. He had already started under the age of 20, gathering assets and revenue streams from his works. Wow. And so the time is now. If you're an artist and you're listening to this, we're based here in Los Angeles. The time is now to start thinking about how you're going to protect and preserve, because you never know what day might be your last. And remember that copyright, the standard copyright law is lifetime plus 70. Your children, your grandchildren, extended family members, because this particular person didn't have any children at the time, was very young, but he still had siblings and parents that he wanted to make sure were taken care of. And so I have a lot of respect for such a young person for having their life together. And because you're right, many people never. And there's people who have passed on and they've been well into their 50s and 60s and beyond, not having, from the entertainment space even, not having any plan in place at all.
Well, I think it's the nature of entertainers, right? They tend to be more emotional and more, as a general rule. And there's business people in the industry as well, but the entertainers, in my experience, is they tend to be, more flamboyant, more emotional, more, less with the brain, more with the heart. And that's not the part that's going to think about, well, are you taking care of your family, your kids, your legacy? Maybe maybe you want to fund some organization that was helpful for you to be where you are today. Those are all things that, by their nature, entertainers are probably less likely than average to think about with that. And so I guess you must have some of those discussions, almost taking a father role on for some of these people, or the voice of wisdom for them.
Absolutely, because I mentioned that word team. And in my book, I talk about your dream team that you should have in your life. And so even as an entertainer, you have your management team, or your business manager, you have your tax professional, you have your financial advisor. If you're dealing with real estate, you have your real estate professional such as yourself. But listen to your team. That's the best advice that I can give. This particular client that I'm speaking of here, the young one, he came to me by way of his financial advisor. And so if you can at least start there, because a lot of times your financial advisor is going to be connected to other individuals that are going to help you protect and preserve your assets. In this case, I was introduced to this artist through his financial advisor, who of course works very closely with estate planning firms and attorneys such as mine. and the relationship was able to be established from there. So please, by all means, listen to your team. That's the best piece of advice that I can give, and let them do all the heavy lifting for you. We'll do all the work for you. You can just focus on your craft, but you have to start the conversation with us so we can make it, more conducive for you to focus on your craft and protect and preserve your intellectual property, the rights in your music and your songs and things of that nature, movies, film.
Well, I would think that one of the challenges we don't know the answer to is the technology coming that we don't know about yet, right? Things are moving so quickly. 10, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have thought there's any value to uploading video for free on YouTube. Now, there are people who have, quite substantial estates built on YouTube channels and the related industries, and Spotify and some of these other technologies. On the horizon now is ChatGPT and AI, where people are going to go there maybe to find music or entertainment, and I'm sure there'll be new ways to protect that. So how do you advise a client to protect these assets? In some cases, we don't even know what they're worth yet today, or we even know what they are yet today, but they're going to be a part of their creative process.
Well, first of all, it starts from, I was a corporate attorney before starting my own firm. So I help our clients. I don't really advertise that I form corporations, and we just kind of do that because it all ties together. Many times folks will come to us and they want us to do their estate plan and say, by the way, Cedric, do you know anybody who can help us form an LLC? Or do you know anyone who can help us, put a corporation together? We just happen to do that, even though we don't really advertise for that. But it starts with that proper business structure, first of all, because if your business is not set up in the right way, you're already going to be kind of maybe hemorrhaging from the start because you don't have the correct business structure that's going to allow you to protect and insulate yourself from liability. So the proper amount of business structure, the proper insurances, very, very important. So often I get calls like, okay, so I heard about this trust that I can design and create, and it's going to look, there's no trust that we can, or anyone that's going to make you bulletproof or invincible. What you want to start off with are the basics, making sure your business is properly structured and you're adequately insured for what you do. Because we live in a very litigious society. And so you want to make sure you have the adequate amount of insurance there to help protect against errors, omissions, and accidents, slips and falls on your property. There's so many different things that can help impact your estate, which is, remember, everything that you own here, your estate. So the proper business structure, along with the adequate insurance, it's just good general advice for any person in the entertainment space that's looking to grow.
When I first met you, I obviously was impressed with some of the technical knowledge and things that you were able to do. But over time, when I realized, and I see this about almost all attorneys, certainly the best ones, is you have to both have the hard technical legal knowledge, legal experience, skills, whatever all that is, plus the soft skills of communicating to people. Because in your business in particular, trust administration, probate administration, you got some hard feelings, you have some unworked through emotions. So talk a little bit, I'm sure in law school, I don't think they talk about this, but it just seems that the good attorneys pick up along the way that if you can't communicate effectively with both your own clients and the other clients or the other attorneys, you're not going to go too far, or more importantly, you'll be more effective if you can communicate effectively with the client. So talk a little bit about how important the soft skills are to you. How do you see that in your practice?
They're critical, Bill. They're critical. So one of the very first films when we're talking about entertainment was the movie Roman J. Israel, which I believe was Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington. Oh, he's an attorney, right?
An attorney. This is the perfect kind of setting for having those soft skills versus having those hard technical practitioner skills. And kind of give the overview of the movie for those who haven't seen it. It's old, so there's no spoiler alert here. Well, Denzel played the role of a introverted savant. Brilliant. He was the brains behind the law. And he had a business partner who was the face of the firm. He was the rainmaker, the social piece in the community, and folks loved him, and he had the reputation, but he had to keep Denzel kind of locked away, if you will, with his nose in the law books, right? Because Denzel didn't have those soft skills. And the movie did a great job of kind of illustrating once one of the partners, the kind of the face of the firm, died, Denzel here, his character struggled because he did not have those soft skills. He was very off-putting and abrasive to potential clients. And that's a picture of what it is like to be in business today. You have some attorneys that are better technicians or tacticians, if you will, and practitioners, and they want to get into all the nuances of the law and kind of put you to sleep, if you will. But it's needed. But you also need that person who's going to be able to communicate and talk and connect with that person in the community, with that potential client. We're in the death business here, unfortunately, right? Or people are passing away or people are diagnosed with critical illnesses and terminal illnesses, and they sometimes need that human side to be kind of invoked here to kind of help push them through and motivate them and encourage them. And sometimes just a listening ear is all it takes, and to have a little bit of empathy. So sometimes attorneys get bad reps for not having a soul. I can remember in my higher education space, Bill, before I opened my firm, there was a particular professor at the university that I worked at. And she said, you know what, Sedric, I think you're going to be a great attorney because you have a soul. It shocked me that she said that, but she had worked prior to her education career. She had worked for an attorney for a number of years in their administrative office. She said, you have a soul. And so I thought about that. Why are some attorneys having the reputation of being soulless, if you will?
Well, I think part of it is, I think some think they're supposed to act that way. And, I remember one of my first mentors in real estate said, you can be rich or right, you just can't be both. and what he meant by that was that when you argue with people, you can't be right. You can try to find some middle ground. You can try to find some way to make everybody happy. But if you're just going to be right and they're wrong, you're going to be forever fighting. And I think with attorneys, look, I came up through debate. I was pre-law in high school and college. And I think there's kind of a school of thought that, you're just parroting the law and you're a hired gun. And that's an approach. And, you and I both know attorneys who fit in that build. And there are other attorneys that think like you who I think they all have souls, but I think you're willing to express it in your business. I think I lost you here again. Okay, so I'm sorry, again, we have a little connection issue, but I think we can rest assured the Sedric has a soul. And more than a soul, you have a voice. I don't need to pigeonhole people, but when I met you was on a few phone calls, probably a couple hours of calls before I met you in person and saw you in video. You have a soulful voice. In fact, you remind me of the star or the MC of a program, Soul Train, from years ago. I'm kind of dating myself. I actually talked to him on he was an expired listing at one point, didn't get the listing, but so you definitely have soul, and I appreciate that you're an actual human being. You're not an avatar. I've met you in person. You ate breakfast with us. We definitely had a nice visit. So, and again, I've seen, the other thing that I appreciate and why I was glad to have you on and ask that question is I've seen you work with, in person, your client, and then we had another person who was an heir to the estate, which means they're related to your client, but they're kind of at odds with your client. And so that's an interesting dichotomy. On one hand, you want everybody to get along. On the other hand, the other side's hired an attorney. They're kind of gone to the mattresses. So let's talk about how do you manage that kind of conflict that comes up, no matter how well the estate plan's written, there's going to be conflicts, certainly in probate. How do you manage those conflicts both to defend your client, but not to antagonize the other party?
Well, we're still in the people business at the end of the day. And it's my job. I want to remain kind of even keel in my demeanor. I want to make sure that I'm having the proper decorum at all times, because it's very easy to kind of insert your emotions into a situation. And so I want to be that voice of calm. I want to be that voice of reason. Yes, I think you and I may have been in the same place at the same time when there was one incident that occurred, right? And the emotions were very high. Because again, we're dealing with death. So there's no plan that we're going to be able to draft that's going to completely eliminate any drama at all, right? It's going to mitigate. There's always the chance, because you're dealing with death, you're dealing with emotions and the stress that comes from that. And so we want to eliminate it if possible, but at the least we want to mitigate. Right. And by having the proper plan in place, you're already drastically reducing the odds of conflict.
Right.
Imagine what it's like for a moment here. You lost a loved one. Let's say it's mom, and like mom was a staple in the family. She was the glue that held the relationship together for all of these years. And now there's a family home that she's left to the kids, and there's a mortgage on it still, and we're going through probate, and we have all these hearings, and the kid, one child wants to keep the house and the family because it's been in there for years. Another says, hey, we need the money. And here you can already see, without having a properly executed plan, how there's chaos. And this sibling gets their lawyer, the other sibling gets their lawyer, and now all of a sudden we have a legal battle from siblings that have known each other essentially all of their lives.
Right.
And so, but having that plan in place would mitigate so much of that, because you take so much of the decisions off their plate if you've already made those decisions during your lifetime.
Yeah, the best plan, like you say, there's a famous war axiom, which is the enemy also gets a vote. And it doesn't mean that you're going to lose. It just means that you're going to plan the best you can. You're going to discover the flaws in the plan, and then you have to go back to the plan of what preparation you've done to try to mitigate it at that point. And that's the point of a plan, is not to eliminate conflict, but when conflict comes up, that you've done your best. And I like the word you use, mitigate. I think that's the best term. Look, there's a lot to this. Obviously, Sedric, you're my favorite attorneys to work with, and we have a lot going on regularly, and I always enjoy our time together. I feel like I learned so much. One of the things I appreciate is you offer a free a book for download, Prudent Planning for Family Legacy. So if you're interested in that, you can go onto his website, which is legacyoneLaw.com. And you just scroll down and find download the book as well as the newsletter. Talk about what's the goal of your book. What is it you obviously, you're not giving away your service for free, but you're giving maybe an introduction or a taste of it. What's the goal of the book for you, for your prospective clients?
Well, I wanted to pull back the curtain and kind of demystify the world of estate planning, which can be very intimidating. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a very easy 150-page book. It's written at a 5th grade, 6th grade level. I wanted to kind of make this easy and accessible for everyone, right? Not for geeks like us who kind of geek out on this, right, Bill? But I wanted to make this for the average lay person to really understand the difference between wills, trust. Well, what is this power of attorney thing I keep hearing? What is a healthcare directive? How does that impact? What about children? I have minor children living at home, so I have a chapter that covers that. So I wanted a quick kind of LA to Atlanta, LA to New York flight. You can sit down in one flight and you can knock this book out. And we have it in all formats. We have paperback that you can get on Amazon. We also have the Kindle. And what the free download here is the Kindle, the digital version. That free download, you can download it right to your smartphone, computer, or tablet, and just begin the process of informing yourself. And it's in an easy to read guide. And it's not meant to solve all of your issues, but it's at least an opportunity for you to further understand the basics and pick up the phone. And if you don't call us, call an attorney that you do trust to help you kind of navigate this process.
And we have the contact information down below. If Sedric sounds like a fit for you, or you think you might be, or you have questions for him, feel free to reach out. And again, on the website, legacyoneLaw.com, on the top, there's a contact information that you can make an appointment. And if you don't remember all that information, reach out to me. I'd be more glad to make the introduction. I've done that in the past. Sedric is a great attorney and has gotten great results for some of the people I've worked with. Sedric, thank you so much for joining us again today. Always, I feel like I learned a lot, enjoy the time. I also feel like you inspire me to be better at my craft. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. It's always a pleasure to connect with you professionally and personally. And I hope that you and your family have happy holidays.
You as well. Thanks so much. And for the rest of you, this was Estate Planning Weekly. We get together every week. Most commonly interview an estate planning attorney like Sedric. In this case, oftentimes vendors as well, to help us be better in our business, whether you're a realtor or attorney looking to better serve your clients. I hope to help. If I can help in some way, reach out, either like, subscribe, send me an email if you have questions. If you want to be interviewed, if you're an estate planning attorney or vendor, feel free to send me a note and let's get together. If I can help in any way, as always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.